To me, the biggest Hollywood star isn't Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, or Meryl Streep. No, for me, it's King Kong. And I'm not just talking about height. King Kong has been on screen since 1933 and still keeps showing up in movie after movie to this day. But for my money, the original is still the best. That's the one where the monster monkey takes a good look at Fay Wray, grabs her, and just won't let go. Now, this may surprise you, but I know somebody whose behavior is almost exactly like that of King Kong. And it only takes 3 letters to spell their name: IRS. How are King Kong and the IRS the same? Well, when you're as huge as King Kong, you ignore most people. They're like ants and easy to ignore. It's exactly the same with the IRS. It's such an enormous bureaucracy, roughly 77,000 employees in all, that they don't have the time or the ability to deal with each individual taxpayer. Just like with Kong, we're all ants to them and easily overlooked. That's why a taxpayer can easily go through an entire lifetime without any IRS interactions. If they file on time, pay their taxes, and everything adds up in the government's eyes, they're fine. But if the IRS does pick you out of the crowd and decides it doesn't like what it sees, well, like Fay Wray, you're going to find yourself in the clutches of their giant paws with absolutely no way to break free. I see it every day in my practice as a tax attorney. People come into my office crying, not knowing what to do or where to turn. Helping those people resolve their tax cases is what motivates me to get up in the morning and go to work. I've been privileged to help many wonderful, hardworking clients save their income, their assets, their retirement savings, their businesses, their very lives. Most importantly, I've been able to return to them perhaps the most valuable possession any of us can own: peace of mind. The fear Fay Wray felt when King Kong carried her up the side of the Empire State Building was nothing compared to the overwhelming anxiety and absolute terror some people experience when the IRS goes after them for everything they've got, and then some. The government will literally turn their lives upside down trying to shake loose money they simply don't have. A woman who came to see me was one such victim. She made only about $2,300 a month, but the IRS officer handling her case wasn't going to let that stop her. She went so far as to levy my client's Social Security payments. I asked to speak to that officer's superior, and thankfully she saw the injustice of that and released the levy. Because of my years of experience in this field, I'm able to identify those shortcuts and achieve results. For the average person or small business, however, it's almost impossible to navigate the convoluted IRS maze. Now, this is a government agency that's been underfunded and undermanned for decades. That's why, believe it or not, their computer systems date back to the 1960s and are the oldest major IT system still in use in the federal government. Worse, there is no single database that provides a complete 360-degree view of the taxpayer's account and interactions with the IRS. Instead, there are over 60 separate case management systems that, for the most part, don't communicate with each other. Bottom line, one hand doesn't know what the other is doing in an agency responsible for collecting over $3 trillion a year. It gets even worse. Some of the IRS employees routinely supply inaccurate, incomplete, or misleading information to taxpayers who call the agency in search of answers. In a report published in the Wisconsin Law Review, it was determined that taxpayers cannot rely on advice provided over the phone from the IRS. This is deemed as informal advice, and there is an actual federal statute in place that this type of advice is not guaranteed to be accurate. And yet, taxpayers are not warned about this fact when they do speak to an IRS agent over the phone. The upshot of all this: you're better off going for a walk in the woods with King Kong than trying to take on the IRS all by your lonesome. It brings to mind a famous quote from the late comedian Dick Gregory. I wouldn't mind paying my taxes if I knew they were going to a friendly country. That's why our objective in the Lance Drury Law Office is to provide the friendly face the IRS won't, to treat our clients with dignity rather than suspicion, to solve their problems rather than escalate them to DEFCON 1. The core values of my firm are built around one fundamental truth. The client is number one, and nothing is more important than protecting their interests. For me, it's a moral obligation to never be satisfied in terms of improving the quality of our service or the results that we get for our clients. That attitude is pervasive throughout my team, whose efforts I value more than they could know. They understand they're part of something special and that what they do enables them to make a huge positive impact in people's lives. With that in mind, we're making the effort to help even more Americans wake up from their IRS nightmares. That's why we recently expanded our services from our 2 Missouri offices in St. Louis and St. Genevieve to a new office in Nashville, Tennessee. But we never want to grow so big that we lose the all-important personal touch. That's not the case at many national firms who advertise heavily on cable channels, making all sorts of promises and then later on charging fees they don't disclose up front. That's also not the case with many scam artists and lazy practitioners who don't have the depth of experience and expertise to deal with the IRS effectively. They cash the checks, but they don't deliver. Many of the clients of these kinds of firms end up coming to us seeking to help they couldn't find elsewhere, and we're very happy to advocate on their behalf. There is no more gratifying feeling than when you rescue someone who simply doesn't deserve unfair treatment by their own government. For instance, there was one woman who engaged our services who was in a real bind. The IRS said she had a $100,000 liability. The reality was she hadn't incurred that debt. Her husband had, and simply hid all his financial shenanigans from her through the years. When he asked her to sign the tax form every year, she did so, thinking he had everything under control. Well, he didn't. She ended up filing for divorce. Unfortunately, she did get him out of her life, but not that tax debt. It took a tremendous effort, but we finally proved to the IRS she was in the dark about her husband's fraud, and she was granted what's called innocent spouse relief. Now she doesn't owe a single dime. We've also rescued other clients from six-figure IRS debts, in some cases just by running out the clock on the statute of limitations. There are a variety of tactics that can be employed when dealing with the IRS. You just have to know how to use them and when. When the IRS comes after you, it acts like a blunt instrument. Now that may sound scary, but here's the thing about a blunt instrument. It's not very smart, and it's not very skillful. Luckily, the law provides for more than a few avenues of relief when it comes to tax debt. When you leverage those laws properly, that blunt instrument loses all its power, and our clients often cry with relief when that happens. Happy endings are possible. Fay Ray ended up getting away from King Kong, and most of our clients escaped the clutches of the IRS. How? Well, they didn't monkey around. They came to us, and they were awfully glad they did. And to tell the truth, so were we. Thank you very much.